Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Level 1 News. You've survived another week, and here's the start of another one. And today is what? Two.
The two in Tuesday's doing a lot of work today.
Tuesday.
Oh, it's also Tuesday, yeah.
It literally is Tuesday. 2/22/2022.
We're doing government and social news today.
Can you associate that with two somehow? We're doing two topics today.
Two topics on Tuesday. Two.
And two is also peace. There's not a lot of that in the world right now.
Hopefully it doesn't get worse by the time this airs.
True. There could be a lot less by the time you see this.
Yeah.
But we do have a little something to be happy about, I guess, although this doesn't affect us, but I'm sure it affects many of you. I'm sure you're very happy to hear this, although I suspect that you will have a lot of arguments coming up with your landlord.
Yeah.
Rebuffing the cable lobby, the FCC has banned deals that block competition in apartments. One need look no further than New York City to understand how astonishingly bad this is, even given the mega metropolis that is New York City. Landlords make deals with cable providers or other providers all the time, and they provide subpar service because there's no competition. It's no secret. And so finally the FCC is saying, this is kind of dumb and not in people's interest. It only took 25 years.
Apparently this was already illegal, but there were so many loopholes that it just didn't matter, and so this aims to close all of those up. But like I say, don't expect it to just work.
Yeah.
You're probably still going to fight somebody over this.
Yeah.
And there probably still are exceptions, like if you want satellite, you can't mount it to the building.
Probably true, yeah. But hey, incremental change, all right?
Yeah.
It's the best we can hope for. And maybe some less incremental change is coming to our semiconductor industry here in this country, of which we have basically none. But we're looking to get a lot because now everybody's suddenly realizing what a problem it is not having that.
Global Foundries wants to know your location.
But a lot of people are opposed to spending at that magnitude, especially with hyperinflation kicking in. And so they got to fight for it.
Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo urges Congress to pass the semiconductor funding bills that could impact Intel's Ohio plans. That headline has a bit of fear-mongering in it. She's just popping up and saying, hey, Intel expects certain things to be in place. They've already got the ball rolling. We really don't have our house in order. We need to clarify exactly how this is going to work because it could go this way or this way. And right now their expectation is that this thing will be in place, but it's not. We really need to shore that up.
Also, that's Cleveland.com. They have a reason to be loud about this.
Yeah. Maybe a little bias in the headline.
A little bias in everything, Krista. What isn't biased these days? Certainly, the mainstream media is overwhelmingly biased, and the information they're giving us may be not so trustworthy, but according to them, getting your information anywhere else is essentially terrorism.
The Associated Press has the headline, the U.S. accuses financial website of spreading Russian propaganda. What's going on with this? Why is the Associated Press doing this? This is weird.
Probably because that website has more readers than they do. The website is Zero Hedge, and they do post some anti-American stuff, absolutely, because America sucks a lot of the time. But I don't know if they're necessarily pro-Russia. Anyway, they decided they were upset enough about it to press release it, and they said that you shouldn't go to those places and you should only listen to them.
There's a lot of stuff in this article that you could probably comment on in the comments below.
My guess is most people who are loyal Zero Hedge followers naturally are inclined to mistrust the U.S. government. Yes. And so this announcement is probably not going to undermine most of Zero Hedge's core support. But it gets you a headline, doesn't it?
I mean, we're talking about it.
I mean, if I hadn't seen, all of the crazy stuff around like Ajit Pai and passing the laws and defining black as white and up as down, and okay. It's like,
Also, maybe just a touch, just a smidgen. And I know this is Russian propaganda, but just a smidgen of conflict of interest from our commander-in-chief when it comes to Ukraine? Do most people not know that?
No, they don't.
Burisma. That's what you need to Google.
There we go on the naughty list again.
Yeah, that probably is a banned word, isn't it?
Yeah.
And speaking of Biden, he has, he's not saying a whole lot here other than
This is a follow-up. We reported this. This is just like they're just breathing on it.
the hammer is going to come down, but first we must study the nail thoroughly.
Biden seen issuing crypto oversight executive order next week. As far as I can tell, this entire story is based on him sitting next to another person and making a coughing noise that kind of sounded like he said the word crypto. Crypto. And then they wrote an article about it.
Well, he's arming all of these various agencies to study crypto for upcoming heavier regulation.
Now remember, we've handpicked some stories the last 2 or 3 weeks, because this has been some saber rattling for the last 2 or 3 weeks, that show that the authorities actually have a surprising amount of an ability to track and have oversight in cryptocurrencies in general in terms of law enforcement. It's like, oh, you bought your drugs with crypto. Well, we can figure that out now.
Especially in the Great White North, which is exactly what Biden wants. Make no mistake, he wants those controls permanently, and he'll probably get them. And it turns out that he is not actually even the fastest horse out of the gate here.
The SEC ratchets up a crypto crackdown. So, it's funny. They asked for LBRY. Did this article mention the LBRY thing? They say that LBRY is a security. That came up in this too.
Axios really doesn't give you a ton of details, which I appreciate. They really only hit the high points. But no, this is mostly about
BlockFi.
It's about not just BlockFi, but crypto services that are kind of like blurring the lines, especially if you do a coin to open up.
Yeah, that's what LBRY is. Like the SEC says it's a security, but it's based on some other stuff. As far as I can tell, LBRY was not trying to do anything, criminal or to run afoul of the SEC. But the SEC has drugged them through court and keeps delaying. They keep asking for delays. And LBRY has got their legal team, it seems like, in order. And it seems like they've got a pretty good case and they got it put together. And they're like, can we delay for another 8 weeks? It's just like, why? Are they waiting on the executive order? Why is this happening?
Here's the interesting thing about it. They say that if you put a coin out and do pre-mining to raise money, then it's a security because basically, it's like putting out a stock.
Yeah.
Well, Ethereum did that. And the previous crypto person that weighed in on that was like, I think it's okay for Ethereum versus all these other ones because they have proof of work. But Ethereum 2 doesn't have proof of work.
Not anymore.
So
protocol. Yeah. Do you think maybe that's just another form of regulatory capture where the cable industry built their business around rebroadcasting stuff that you get over the air on a wire? But in the case of Arrow, that's no longer allowed. Regulatory capture.
Similar to that, yeah. I'd say probably a lot of those people are invested in Ethereum too.
Yeah.
So, makes sense.
The aforementioned mistrust and corruption.
Yeah.
And trust is an interesting word because I don't know where to put mine. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't trust any of it. Who knows what's real and what's for sale these days? No one. And we're going to just keep seeing more and more of this, and who knows what the truth is.
U.S. agencies say Russian hackers compromised defense contractors. Kremlin-based cyber attacks lurked in the networks for months, obtaining sensitive documents related to weapons infrastructure development. Yeah.
Is it hard to believe that the Russians would do this?
No.
Is it hard to believe that we would false flag it? No.
Yeah. Well, and they've been talking about Russian hackers for a couple different countries, but it's like, then if you read the articles, it's like, well, we're not sure it's Russia.
It's always Russian linked.
Yeah. So it's like, well, is that just someone who's capitalizing on the panic everyone has right now and just messing with stuff? But
we've seen multiple times in the past where China and Russia will try to cosplay as one another, or it could be even deeper than that. It could be somebody else cosplaying as China, cosplaying as Russia.
Right. It's just 4chan all the way down.
And sometimes these things aren't even really sensitive. It's like, oh, they got the building schematics for the bathrooms at the new guard shack outside the Pentagon.
These aren't ADA compliant.
Do you think you get the same attaboy if you turn that into your supervisor?
Oh, yeah. You absolutely do, yeah.
That's probably why they do that.
Yeah.
Now, this might be the last time we discuss this one. I hope that it's not. I hope that we talk about a massive settlement in the future.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think it will be the last time.
Cole County prosecutor declines to charge Post-Dispatch reporter targeted by Parson. I was so outraged by this, I had to do a separate video on it, showing exactly what the guy did and going point by point.
You didn't take a hate nap?
I mean, it was just... Ugh. Now, the prosecutor here said, a misdemeanor definitely occurred, but we're not going to press charges. And I think the prosecutor said that to try to give the governor an out for, libel or defamation or something, because it was definitely a level of idiocy that can only be described as persecution.
But if you got that in a court, it's going to be embarrassing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is the real reason they did that. Yeah. Plus, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Yes. A blatant one. This whole thing was. You know what? The system they built that he discovered in the first place, a waste of taxpayer dollars. And then everything after that. It's just a snowball.
Yeah.
Incompetence all the way down. Except for the journalist.
Yeah.
Who was actually investigating.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Imagine we have a journalist that's actually investigating on his own, and this happens. And that's why we are where we are.
They're definitely not going to make that mistake again. So might as well sell it on the open market.
Sell it to Russia.
Yeah. It's no wonder this keeps happening.
And when it comes to selling your hacks, this gentleman was quite successful. Although you could argue that he went a little too far and took something that was anti-consumer and made it a little bit more anti-consumer, maybe?
Yeah. Nintendo enemy Bowser scores 3-year prison sentence for selling Switch hacks. This is the Team Executor stuff. This is the federal case. They settled the federal case is wrapped up. $2.5 million, I think, in restitution and 3 years prison term. But Nintendo also had a civil case against him.
Wow.
That's generally frowned upon. You're not supposed to do federal and civil at the same time, unless, I guess, you're Nintendo. But
they got to make a picture of this guy so everyone knows. Don't mess with them.
And the civil case was another $7 million or so. So this guy's out about $10 million in restitution, all in.
And it's hilarious that this came down when it does. And I'm going to do what Wendell usually does here and give you some foreshadowing. Stick around. I don't even remember which one it's in, but you will find out that the thing that this guy was allowing you to do is something that Nintendo would sell you, but not anymore.
Yeah, it's this is really uncalled for. This level of intellectual property control we must fight back against it, because the term of copyright is just so absurd these days, especially compared to a patent.
The media hellscape we find ourselves in.
Yeah, Nintendo kind of has pushed me out entirely.
Yeah.
I don't really have any interest. They have some good stuff, obviously, but I'm willing to live without it.
I definitely enjoyed some Nintendo titles, but this is so beyond the pale that it's just not acceptable.
Of course, people in the comments are going to point out how the game companies that we still patronize are just as bad.
If not worse.
I guess we are kind of picking our fights there. But hey, give up as much as you can, right? Hurt them as much as you can. Now this one, this sounds like a pretty amazing thing, I guess, but I can't help but think back to those Ukrainian/Russian/Chinese hackers who turned off the heat in several buildings. And then I think about my smartphone and how secure I think that is. And then I look at this, and it seems like an accident waiting to happen, right? Well, not an accident, a tragedy.
The FDA clears the first smartphone app for insulin delivery. The T-Slim X2 insulin pump users can use the app to program doses rather than the pump itself. Definitely not for people that have the Pegasus spyware installed on their phone.
And by the way, you don't know if you have the Pegasus spyware installed on your phone. Yeah. Or your kid gets a hold of your phone, your toddler, and it's just and they're like, oh, I'm sleepy. But I guess that does save you. It's probably a hassle to deal with all that stuff. El Salvador, we all know, is it's branching out, leaving the comfort of the central banking controlled oligarchy.
And they do not like that.
Oh boy, do they not like that.
The last chapter of this has not been written. There's going to be some sort of incredible disaster.
No, but I have so much respect for this guy based on his reaction.
CoinDesk has the article, Bipartisan Senate proposal raises the alarm over El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption. And then the very last line of this article.
But I went ahead and added another headline.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Hill, the response is El Salvador leader tells, hey, boomer, U.S. senators to stand down over Bitcoin adoption. It's you can't control the adoption of money. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, his quote was a little bit more than that, but it was basically hey, this is my country. You don't get to make these decisions. But oh boy, are they going to try.
Yeah.
And one threat that they just barely exposed the very tip of there was pulling away all of the central banking oligarchy from him if he continues down this path. Cutting him off completely. Basically what they're threatening to do to Putin for invading another country.
Yeah.
So invading another country, accepting Bitcoin, those are on the same level. Same level of terrorism.
Even though we can track them. So, like, all the arguments about the bad things you can do, all it takes is one Walmart gift card.
It's not about that. It's about this is a kind of currency that is more advantageous in almost every way to their version of the currency.
Yeah.
And you cannot have that in the public eye. You just can't have it. Might have to go to war with El Salvador.
How many fronts can we have war on this time?
No, I'm pretty sure it won't be war. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be United Fruit Company. They're going to be United Fruit Companied.
Oh yeah, there'll be a revolution. A fiat currency revolution. That's the saddest revolution.
Yeah. Thanks, Chiquita.
We are in the saddest reality.
Well, let me say, as someone who drives a car that sits very, very low to the ground, this is an important theme for me.
Yeah, this is a great story.
My God, those truck headlights. When they're above you, it is crazy.
U.S. will finally allow adaptive beam headlights on new cars. The technology has been deployed in Europe and Japan for some years now. So basically, the car knows if there's an oncoming car, it just deals with it.
Which we, like, as someone who lives in the country, too, like, you're driving on those little tiny country roads, you come around a corner and someone has their brights on. Oh, that is so awful. Even in a not low-to-the-ground car.
I imagine those will be very expensive to replace, and headlights are the kind of thing that you always have to deal with unless you're Krista.
Yeah, well, I still haven't dealt with mine on my other car.
That's what, 2 years and a half?
Yeah, I don't drive
Maybe
it very
3?
often, though. I don't drive it.
I only drive during the day.
I kind of do. I'm like an old lady when I drive that car.
You're lucky Kentucky is a little bit backwards and we don't do the inspections.
Yeah.
Because you get hurt. Oh, and you're lucky that that's not on the blockchain yet.
Oh, yeah.
Your headlight being out would be on the blockchain.
My car is so old that won't be a concern, but whenever that car finally kicks the bucket and I have to get a new one, that's going to suck.
If we're still doing this, I can't wait for the stories like, Parson didn't change their headlight and it invalidated the warranty on their transaxle or whatever.
Cancel their insurance because it's not safe, right? Yeah. So we don't have to pay out on that. That was your fault.
I mean, I would be okay with that, but then they'll start canceling the warranty on like things that should still be under warranty, like the powertrain.
But no, it'll be like it's like those 80s movies where, they'll just say that the headlight was out or they'll break it after the fact or whatever and they'll take a picture of it.
Or it's like your brakes went out and it was broad daylight and they're like, well, the headlight was out, so we can't rule that out as what caused the problem.
Yeah, you never know right as your headlight goes out. You always see it later.
Your Honor, the deputy stopped me and my blockchain maintenance log clearly shows that my taillight was broken out after I stopped, and he said that I cited for a broken taillight.
And then you get terrorism charges. You weren't allowed to look at that blockchain. Now, Krista, you say that you don't drive your car much, and we know this. You've said this a couple of times. I can vouch for it. You will drive them into the ground. And your previous car.
It was a nightmare. It was disgusting.
It was quite loud.
It was, it didn't have much of a muffler, so it was just,
right.
You could hear it coming down the block.
Yeah, very loud.
One of the windows didn't work. The windshield wipers were all messed up. The paint was peeling off of it.
And not a fun kind of loud either.
No, it was just like, wow, that car's really ghetto.
Just a horrible loud. And you're lucky that you don't have that car anymore, and you're lucky you don't need to go to New York.
New York is now using cameras with microphones to ticket loud cars.
So, kind of like the shot spotter mics, but way more sensitive, I guess.
This would be great because if you have a bunch of cars that are like loud and honking, the police can just start mailing them citations for every honk. That's surely not the dystopian future that we're headed toward.
Oh. Were you just waiting for somebody to latch onto that? I know what you're doing. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Do you remember, though, there's another side to that. And personally, I hate, like, when you see a little Subaru with the coffee can muffler. That's pathetic. But there was a viral video a while back where in this town somewhere, they were putting whistlers on the mufflers, and they're interviewing people, and the guy's, like, imitating it, and he's just like, woo, woo, woo. You got to check out that video. I don't know what it's called. But people will put items on their car to make them obnoxiously loud.
Maybe that's what this is trying to get at. But
No,
it's going to
it's-
capture
nah,
people like me.
It's New York. It's going to capture everything that's not an electric vehicle.
It's going to capture money. That's revenue generation. Also, do you know Mayor Pete is the transportation secretary or whatever now? Do you know what his plan is to fight inequality? Speed cameras, traffic cameras. Because a cop could be racist, but a traffic camera can't.
I'm pretty sure we've done a lot of stories about cameras actually being a little bit racist.
Literally more racist than people, right?
Yeah.
Although they're not recognizing faces, they're just looking at license plates.
Well,
I mean, it's a terrible idea. I'm not defending it. It's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. But, whatever. Apple and Google, they get sued all the time. Different country every week. This week it's the Netherlands.
Apple and Google face a Netherlands class action lawsuit. Why? Because developers are forced to endure fees that the Netherlands think maybe are a little excessive. That 30%,
Hard to argue with that. Not much new information there. It's basically the same argument everybody else makes. Because
is there a reason they used this image on this article? I was thinking about that earlier.
I imagine this is some sort of iconic book.
Children's story that somehow has to deal with the subject matter. I don't.
This
If you know what this book is, tell us.
This guy has 5 names.
Van de Holst.
That's excessive.
The law offices of W.G. Van de Holst.
I wouldn't get legal advice from a man dressed like that.
No.
And France also attacking Google. Again, it's nothing new. It's the same old argument.
TechCrunch, France's privacy watchdog, the latest to find Google's analytics breaches GDPR. Again, we see the pattern that we've pointed out before. Google pops up and says, the law says this. We think that this is a very clever loophole around that wording. And the court says, no, the spirit, like any human being could read this law and understand not to be tracked. You know, you've done a clever loophole here, but you're still tracking an individual. So we're just going to ban Google Analytics. This is probably a preview for what's going to happen in the European Union at large.
And they take the lawsuit and they stretch it out and they appeal.
Yeah.
And they get all that they can out of that horrible policy as long as they can. And when they can't anymore, they move on to the next thing, which they've already prepared. Because they knew this was going to happen.
We have a story on that in the business section.
Yeah. And, of course, the central bankers, as I mentioned earlier, not fans of cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin. And so any chance they have, they will malign it.
Cryptocurrency is akin to a Ponzi scheme and is banning it is perhaps the most advisable choice, it says India's central bank. The headline's kind of inflammatory here. If you actually read what they're saying in India, they're saying that a lot of the time it's a Ponzi scheme. It could have some utility. It could be useful for some reasons that they outline in terms of like tracking and cutting down on fraud and, you know, having an immutable record of where the money went and that kind of thing. But most of the time, probably fraud.
I mean, they probably could have just replaced that with NFTs, right?
Yeah, the article or the way that it's written, it really comes right up to suggesting that the government just control some kind of blockchain technology. That's a different blockchain technology for the citizens of India to protect them. Which there's kind of a lot of corruption.
Not in the Modi administration. Now, this story is 3 days old when we're filming this. It'll be more than that by the time you see it. And already it's moved so far beyond this.
Yeah.
But we'll cover it anyway because it's important to know the steps that led up to what's coming.
Yeah, CNET's talking about this Ukraine's military and banks have been hit by an apparent DDoS cyber attack. The outages come amid tension. Yeah, a lot of tension.
Yeah. I'm kind of ready for the tension to be over. I need them to shit or get off the pot.
Oh, well, today I've seen, I mean, you can't verify any of it, right? But
It's hard to, yeah.
A couple of screenshots of shelling on the border. Apparently, a lot of the separatists in Donbass are pulling into Russia because they are the Russian part of that. That's the whole thing, is the part of Ukraine with Russian people in it that don't want to be in Ukraine, supposedly. Who knows?
Yeah, I can't follow it very well. I'm not versed on how all that went down.
Well, the good news, Krista, is you'll get a bunch of YouTube comments from people who also don't know anything about it. But they will speak with absolute authority and explain it to you, and they'll all contradict one another. It's a beautiful world that we're living in.
Sucks to live there right now, I'm sure.
Where we
Either
can,
way.
Where we can all get together on YouTube and be friends.
Oh.
Friends. Fans in China complain of censorship after LGBTQ plotline has been axed.
That's kind of a major thing to get rid of, right?
I didn't remember. I wasn't a big Friends watcher, but after I read the story, I was like, oh, I kind of do remember that. So it turns out that
Ross's ex-wife.
this guy's ex-wife in the show, who is one of these girls, is a lesbian. And that was the funny thing. Is like he's such a loser that she left him and left men entirely. You know, like.
But she was pregnant when she left, I think.
Oh, was it his kid?
It was his kid.
Wow.
So it's a major plot line because the kid shows up in the show.
And that whole episode, if I remember correctly, like 80% of the jokes were Ross is a loser because his wife, like he turned her off of men.
It wasn't that funny, but it is kind of hard to cut around it because it's a huge part of multiple episodes.
So a lot of people in Hong Kong are saying like, this is too much. I'm not going to watch this anymore. But like,
I mean, there's better TV now, I think.
if they're triggered by censorship, is this really the first thing they've noticed?
Yeah. This episode's supposed to be 30 minutes long, and it's only 10 minutes. I don't understand.
They said to themselves, you know what? I feel like I'm anti-authority now. I want to fight the system. I'm going to go watch Fight Club. The joke is they censored that too.
Well, they uncensored it when people got angry. Maybe they'll do that here, too.
And people noticed. It's the censorship that you don't notice that's the most insidious.
We need to come up with a catchy phrase for like bring back the lesbian or whatever, you know, so they can put it on signs and stuff. Don't do that, you'll get arrested. Moving on to social media, Meta is the big story, and once again this week we have lots of Meta stories, and I think it's important to point out every time that we do a big string of Meta stories, because the news, I mean everybody is just pounding out story after story. It doesn't exist. There is no metaverse. They have 2 apps. They don't really do much of anything. And yet, it's all we can ever talk about.
Why you can't have legs in virtual reality yet. It's this same picture.
I saw a version of this photo that the caption was, when you die in the metaverse, you die in real life.
It's like all these corporate videos. Yeah, just.
Kill me.
Yeah. We got to get the green screen up and running so that we can do dystopian versions of these backgrounds where it's just.
And we got to get some green pants so that we can.
Yeah, we can be in the metaverse. Yeah. That's what chat wants.
So the answer, if you look at all this text. Look at all this text. The answer is there are no sensors on your legs. It's the most obvious thing in the world.
Oh,
I love this one.
Another great photo. Man, he is just uniquely not photogenic.
So here's my theory about this, right? I think that Zuckerberg, up until this point, has not met with a lot of controversy, right? I mean, sure, people have attacked him for various things, being a horrible person and spying and all that stuff. But I think he could cognitive dissonance that away. But now that Facebook is starting to lose people, and he sees what's going to happen eventually, I think he's kind of losing it.
Yeah.
I think he's breaking up a little bit. And this is certainly evidence, I would say. Yeah.
Zuckerberg has coldly explained to Facebook staff that they are now to be known as Metamates.
He thinks he's Caesar, but he's really just Nero. He's playing his fiddle.
Like, if I were a Metamate, like, I'm not advocating for self-harm, but I mean, it's just, I would, it's like, oh, you're a Metamate now, and it's like, do I still feel? Is this real? Am I dreaming? What? Wake up.
If you work at Facebook, you already have natural mental defenses against being a horrible person. So I don't think this would affect them as much. You have the reptile gene, enough of it. I guess it's a play on shipmates, is what some people are explaining.
And it's alliteration, I guess, but it's why? Why are we wasting time on this?
So now they also had these like guiding principles at Facebook. All of those have now been revised, and it seems like that was all just his idea, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like Google when they got rid of "Don't be evil," I guess, because now he's saying they need to be meaner to their users. Be open. That's gone. Now we live in the future. Isn't that technically impossible?
Now is always the future. The future is always the future.
Every picture of you is a picture of you when you were younger.
Be direct and respect your colleagues is gone, and now changing to be open, which we just got rid of, which doesn't make much sense. And you're not supposed to nice yourself to death. Nice yourself to death.
What is he responding to? Or is he just unhinged?
I think I saw this in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was the one when Data built his daughter, and something was not stable with her positronic matrix, and this was kind of like the beginning of that.
Did they airlock her immediately? Because that's what needs to happen here.
Data tried real hard to save her, but she didn't make it.
Well, the metaverse barely exists. That doesn't stop the big corporations from flooding into it, because let's be honest, you don't really have to invest a lot, right? To get a place in the metaverse, it's not any real thing, so yeah, just throw something up.
JPMorgan bets the metaverse is a $1 trillion yearly opportunity as it becomes the first bank to open in virtual world. The $1 trillion bet is really talking about NFTs and some other things, it turns out, but okay.
What can you do at JPMorgan in the metaverse? Well, not much, but there's a tiger.
Okay. Can you even pet it?
Kind of a low poly tiger, if we're going to be honest.
I'm kind of reminded of when CNET thought that virtual reality was going to do some amazing things in like the late 90s. And we had programs like Virtus VR. Yeah, it didn't work out.
Let's hope that this doesn't either. But this has a lot of momentum behind it and a lot of money.
This picture about the facial recognition technology.
Could they have picked a worst photo?
Or better, depending on what the algorithm's looking for.
Well, you know, this guy might be reprehensible in other ways, but he's on the side of the light here because he's trying to stop them from doing what we all know they're doing, which is pulling all of our facial data off of social media and using it against us.
Texas sues Meta saying that it misused facial recognition data. Yes, it did. But, meh.
So you could tag people in images, and when you tagged people in images against their will, maybe, then it would store that and remember who that is and build the network knowing who everyone is, and then it could tag those people on its own later on. What a great feature. Turns out not legal, probably. Probably not.
But it's okay when California sells the DMV database to a company for purposes.
Well, they're on the forces of good. Now, Emily Baker White is another one I think it's important to point out. Couldn't write her way out of a paper bag. And she points out that she used to work for Facebook and some other giant tech company. And
this was a lot of words that could have been one paragraph.
And I'm guessing that she was bad at those jobs, and that's how she ended up writing garbage clickbait for BuzzFeed. Because this is a non-story.
Meta wouldn't tell us how it enforces the rules in VR, so we ran a test to find out. So basically, they created a virtual world that was blocked on the regular Facebook, like Facebook group thing.
Well, they chose phrases that are, like very incendiary. As you can see here, we won't actually say them because they'll get us banned.
Yeah. And then they flagged it, and then they got a review. They actually flagged it with multiple accounts, and then they got a review, and the review said this is completely fine. But if these things had been flagged in the non-metaverse version of this, it's taken down. And then when they did the story, it said, oops, somebody inside, and then they took it down.
But here's the thing. This was an unpublished, non-public meta world. You couldn't stumble into this. In total, in its entire existence, it had 4 total users visited. They were all BuzzFeed employees. So obviously, somebody got the flag. How many flags a day do you think they're dealing with?
3.
How many flags an hour?
Oh.
Yeah.
Millions.
And they looked at it and they were like, okay, 4 users, unpublished. It's got some buzzwords in it. Next.
Yeah.
So they contacted the PR department. And they're like, we're BuzzFeed and we need a headline. I gave it to them.
Yeah.
I've been hearing great things about this new Playboy Secret series. Have you guys watched that at all? I'm a little bit hyped for that. It sounds like there is some dark stuff that came out of that grotto. But Playboy actually still exists. I don't think they have a, do they have a magazine.
Film at 11. No,
I think the magazine might be gone. They point out in this article that you guys read it. I can't ask you that. The number one thing that Playboy can sell is the trademark on this bunny.
Yeah.
That's their most valuable asset.
I could see that because that's always like, it's on people's trucks, or you get the belly piercing with it,
Or
while you're
the-
in Gatlinburg.
Tanning, girls who tan.
Yeah.
They always get the little bunny there.
I don't know if that's still a thing, but I think it was very popular, like in the white trash community in the early 2000s.
Wow, Krista.
I'm just saying.
Way to judge several of my past sexual partners. But
Way to judge almost everyone I grew up with. Everyone had the Playboy bunny.
But Playboy is still trying to expand, I suppose, and go into new things, which can only mean one thing, right?
Playboy wants to build a new mansion in where, you guessed it, the metaverse.
Wow, that is just going to be a cesspool of horrible stuff.
The other quote from this is, one of our biggest assets is that we've got like 12 million items in our catalog that we can sell as NFTs.
Now, well, it says, here's the question. It says they have already created thousands of NFTs based on the bunny logo. What's the difference between all the thousands of them?
All just different colors,
I guess.
slightly different RGB values.
Also, who knew this? They have a platform called Centerfold that is an OnlyFans type of thing.
Didn't know that.
I don't think anybody did.
I wonder if the cut is better or if it's worse.
Can you imagine if they had built that, like been the first to build that, and had the vision to put that together? That would have been just something crazy.
Maybe, yeah. And the YouTube Olympics, I've watched a little bit of Olympics, but it's hard to watch them on YouTube, honestly, because they don't give you the whole thing. You
Yeah,
just-
they need to make playlists and not just
Yeah.
individual, like, here's one person skating. Oh, now here's a video of curling. It's like, well, I want to watch the whole skating segment.
yeah. Well, they won't show you the whole event either.
The reason
Yeah.
is because they want you to search endlessly and watch a million things that are not actually what you want before finding what you actually want.
Well, they want
I'll
you
just
to go
give
to,
up.
They want you to go to their website and log in through your cable provider, which is, I mean, come on, really?
Not
The,
doing
the
it.
maximum ad revenue is to frustrate you up to the point just before you just give up and turn it off.
And the algorithm, when you search for something and it's like, well, I don't have a lot of that, but I've got something else I bet you'll like, it makes some choices that people don't like when it comes to China.
Wired points out that the Olympic highlights on this site are riddled with propaganda. The platform search engine is funneling sports fans into watching political content about the thing.
Now, you might think that's pro-China propaganda, but actually it sounds like it's pretty much 50-50. If you'll recall, this country is spending tax dollars to create anti-China propaganda. And I'm sure
To
there's a lot of that.
reimburse.
Come on. They're basically, commissioning it.
I was surprised by that, yes. Sometimes it has to be laundered through a Canadian company, though. We covered that last week.
Corruption in Canada? What? And Twitter, we all know that Twitter has bots. Most of the bots are horrible and you don't want them. Once in a while, someone will make a bot that kind of does something useful, I guess, but really it's also just annoying and in the way. But according to Twitter, they can separate the good from the bad.
Twitter officially launches labels to identify the quote-unquote good bots.
How does the Elon Musk bot that tracks his flights, how do they classify that one?
I don't think they've weighed in on that, but I think we could all guess. I drank too fast. So yeah, you have to go through a weather bot. Do we really need that?
Or what about the bot that's like saved you a click or whatever, where it'll clickbait certain headlines that show up on Twitter?
Although that could be a spoiler, right?
I guess, but why would you follow that account if you didn't care, or if you did care about spoilers?
What if I never miss a story by Kyle Wiggers and I like it when it's not spoiled for me? Then it's a bad bot.
Then don't follow it.
I don't follow anybody on Twitter.
You can mute it now, too, so to prevent the Twitter algorithm from
Even showing
you.
it to you.
Well, that's a good thing, I suppose, but I still don't think that social media is the proper way to consume any of that. News does not belong on social media. And it turns out I'm not alone in thinking that.
Researchers warn that social media may be quote-unquote fundamentally at odds with science. Well, yeah.
Does that surprise anybody? I mean, it's just based on engagement because that's what gets them the most money. I don't.
The whole thing I could think of while I was reading this was what you're describing is the lack of critical reasoning facilities. Like, the whole problem is nobody has critical reasoning facilities because it's not taught.
The only thing I could think of while reading this was the phrase, "the science has changed."
But the science is not supposed to change like that.
Oh, are you saying that that's maybe another way of saying we were wrong? And yet no one will ever say they were wrong, will they?
I like to think sometimes we say idiotic things, but in the face of more evidence, I will totally change my mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Most people won't do that. It's like, I didn't know now what I know then.
Most people in power won't do that.
Yeah. It's very sad.
There's a lot of sadness.
All right, what do we got for tomorrow?
Business and
there's more meta stories in the business section.
Probably,
it's weird.
It's probably robot. Yeah. Probably robot. I pre-sorted this week.
Woo! All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
I'm out of my delicious Thai iced
Oh, I saw
tea.
you had that when I came in, and I was like, ooh, I should go to the Thai restaurant and get an iced tea.
We're going to leave that in?
Yes.
Okay, bye.